All right, we're learning a new Sikha. This is a new Sikha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's from Chelik Aleph, the first book of Likuti Sichot. There's like 40 something books already of Sikha, and that's just the first couple of years of the Rebbe's speeches, a small smattering of Sikha. But these are speeches that the Rebbe gave that he went over this and this is very accurate. Okay, it's written in Yiddish. There's also translations in Hebrew. There's also translations in English, but we're going to do the Yiddish, the original. Okay, in Heintek Sedrin, in this week's Torah portion, Parshas Shmini. So it starts off talking about this, the day that the tabernacle opened up for business, and the God's presence came down, and none of an Avihu rushed in, and it was just too holy. They died, and all of a sudden it starts talking. The subject really changes at first glance drastically, and it starts talking about which animals are permissible to eat. Nothing to do whatsoever, apparently, with the temple. It's just another thing in Judaism. Just there's all sorts of different topics, and it just flips from one topic to the other. There's no connection, right? Wrong. There is a connection. We're going to see what it is. And Heintek said in this week's Torah, Redzich talks about vegan the behemoths, the permissible animals, vilchem and megasim, which we can't eat. When the behemoths tameas and the impure, forbidden animals, was mentor nish esim, which we must not eat. When the Torah gives tzvei simonim, and it gives two signs on the animals, it talks about which animals are permissible, which fish are permissible, which birds are permissible. And the Torah gives two signs. What are two signs on what makes an animal permissible? And we're going to see the question is, do these signs make it permissible, or do they just show that it's permissible? We'll see. Milas Gera or Mafris Parsa. There are two signs of a permissible animal in Judaism, and there are many types of animals which are permissible. There's only three which are called behemoths, that's brought in the temple, and that is goats and sheep and cattle. But then there's also like deer and antelope and things like that. And it was any animal, maybe even giraffes could be, any animal that has these two signs, it's kosher. There's other reasons why giraffe is not kosher, but let's see. When the Torah the Torah gives two signs of a behemoth Torah, what makes an animal kosher. Malagira umafris parsa. It chews its cud. In other words, it eats quickly, swallows the food, and goes into some sort of a pre-stomach, and then it brings the food back up again and chews it again more thoroughly. And some people say you can see the miracle of God because all these animals are not animals of prey. And some say they have to run. This is just a made up something. They have to run away from their predators, so they eat quickly, and then they don't have to chew it up. They run away, and then they can find, when they get to a safe place, then they can bring the food back up and chew it. Okay, whatever you want to say. Anyway, that's one of the signs of a permissible animal, that it chews its cud. And the other one is mafris parsa, that its hooves are split. It has hooves, right? Not like fingers or paws. And the hooves are split into two. And the split has to go, you can look from the top and see all the way through, theoretically. Taking this some money regarding these signs is Farana Hakira. There is a what do you call it? An argument, you want to call it. Sees Zayin and Sibos of Torah, whether these things make the animal kosher. As mitzad dem was the behem is a mila gira, that which the animal chews its cud and it has a split hooves, this makes the animal kosher. And also the opposite, if it doesn't chew its cud, that's what makes it unkosher. Others is zayin and beloy simonim, or maybe it's just a sign which indicates this animal is kosher. But it could be that even if they're missing, the animal could be kosher. Just these are the signs. Thus says this means as the tahora, it's a behema, that the an animal is permissible is mitzad andresibus. The reason the animal is permissible is other reasons. God decided whatever. Nor bechdei mir zollen wesen, in order that you should know which animals are permissible animals. Hat the Eibishter God, Rangi given, he gave these signs that we can see and know which animals are kosher. Right? What's the difference? The chiluk, it's like the thing of, does a certificate, a graduation certificate, that the person is a professor. Is that a sign that he's smart, or does the certificate make him smart? Right, make him smart. In the famous movie, what was it called? The Alice in Wonder? No. I don't even remember what it was. Anyway, the Tin Man or whatever, he wanted to be smart, and he went to the Wizard of Oz, and the Wizard of Oz says, believe me, my friend, what makes the person smart is that he has a certificate. You get a certificate, you're a professor. That's it. And you give him a certificate, now you're smart. Does the certificate make you smart? Or if you're smart, you get the certificate is just a sign. That's the same thing. The animals, the fact that it chews its cud and has split hooves, does that make it kosher? Or is it just a sign that it's kosher? The din is, the law is, as a yotzim in a Torah, what's the difference? The chiluk, what's the difference? Let's take a practical legal difference in Judaism. The law is a yotzim in a Torah. An animal that comes from a clean animal is clean, right? A cow gives birth to something that looks not like a cow. If we know its mother was a cow, even though it looks like a horse, nevertheless, the animal is kosher. Chach erad nitkain simoni tahora, even if it doesn't have any signs of being poor, right? A cow gives birth to something that looks like a monkey. Nevertheless, it comes from a cow, it's kosher. Vitsum baiso, for instance, hayotzim in a tor or parsatov kalutos. Let's say an animal comes out, like I just said, from a cow, and its hooves are not split. Chacher at nitkain simoni, even though it hasn't got any signs of purity, of permissibility, vibaltaber, as it comes to rois, because it comes from a permissible animal, so it's also. If we say that, what's this got to do with us, we'll see. If we want to say, as the Samani Torah Zain and Nitmer be Samani Mevorim, excuse me, if we want to say that the signs of a split hoof and a chewing cud, these are just signs that show that the thing is pure or not, is there is the din verstandig, so it's understood. Because it's logical. Vibald is yotzim, because it comes from a pure animal, a permissible animal. Hadart the inyan from simonim kind ordinate, that we don't care about the signs. It's just that usually you see an animal, you don't know who his mother was. So therefore, God made it easy for us, and He showed us signs that show that it came from a kosher mother. But if the signs are not there, the animal doesn't chew its cud and it doesn't have cloven hooves, but we know for sure it came from a kosher animal, then the animal's kosher. But menved zogen, if we say that the signs, this chewing the cud and split hooves, they are a cause from being permissible. Darf mitzadas bora. Now we all of a sudden, according to logic, we have to ois kuman as oi parasas kolutos, that such an animal, that even though it came from a cow, but if it looked like a horse, it had hooves that were closed and it didn't chew its cud, as darfer zayin, then it should be tome, not kosher. Und das, was the din is, as is tor, is das mitzad gezeres hakatuv. So then, let's say that we can still say that an animal that comes from a kosher animal is kosher in any case. We can still justify that law and say that everything depends on the signs. An animal that has closed hooves, and or it doesn't have both cloven hooves and chews its cud. If it's missing one of these things, then the animal is not kosher. Why is it not kosher? Because what makes the animal kosher? It's hooves and it's chewing the cud. That's what makes it kosher. There's a law that if an animal comes from a kosher animal, right, it gives birth a horse, what looks like a horse. Its mother is a cow. So we can say, how do you justify that? How do you fit that in with it? So we'll say the Torah made exceptions. There's times when the Torah makes exceptions. That's all. There are certain laws where the Torah makes exceptions to the law. The classic case is and Shabbat. There's all these laws you have to keep on Shabbat, and the punishment is death if you don't keep them. But if a person is in danger, a person's life is in danger, then you don't have to keep Shabbat, right? You don't have to keep Shabbat anymore. But you can light fire and you can do all the things that are forbidden on Shabbat in order to save someone's life. So there's an exception, right? Here also we can say there's an exception. Really, the signs determine. That's what makes the animal kosher. But there happens to be an exception. If we know for sure an animal came from a kosher animal, then we don't look at the signs. And nafkamina, another difference, the law is, see that tahora is mitzad asbora, see mitzad gezeros akasuv. One difference is, mit der tor men zich nit spielen. You're not allowed to misuse a kosher animal. When is does geredet given? When is this? Oiber is fumamin tahor. If the animal comes, its mother was a pure animal. Oiber zayin min is a tame. But if, let's say, a cow came from what looks like a cow, it has a cloven hooves and everything, but it came from a horse, right? A horse gave birth to an animal, an aberration. What is it called? An aberration, something. A cord gave birth to the cow. Now the cow is technically, according to this second opinion, the cow is kosher. It has the signs, but because it came from a not clean animal, so it's permissible to play with it, to use it for whatever you want. Nor there is tahor mitzada gazer zakazu. Is there iser nita? It's not forbidden to, let's say, play with it, to knock it around, whatever you want. A raya, there's what's the proof? It says in the Torah that the levayasan ze yitzarta l'sachek bo. Remember, we learned about that mimer in this week, Parshas Shmini, which, by the way, I just yesterday uploaded the second half of the class in Likuti Torah that we had about the fish and the big ox. It says that they're playing together. Frek the Rishalmi, the Shalma says, "Vi megmen spielen mit der davar tar." You're not allowed to play around with a kosher animal, not just to play around with it. You're not supposed to do it, right? Take a cow and dress it up and make it walk on its hind legs for in a circus or something. You're not allowed to do that. With a bear or something, you can. But not, how can it says that the tzaddikim will play around with this fish? When our answers, it says, as levayatan is at some davar tameh, that this big fish is really a not clean animal, like a whale. But hutar michlal iser. But nevertheless, it for this one exception, is God made an exception and gave it fins and made it kosher. Zedman, from them we can see as of the tahora is mitzada gazira, that if the reason that it's declared to be permissible is because the Torah declared an exception, as megman der spiel, and then you can play around with it. It's permissible to play. Strange law. Okay, let's get back to this. What's relevant to us? What's relevant to us? As Zayin and Faran, Kama Rayos, there's many proofs. As a Simani Torah, Zayin and Asiba, Oivtem Torah. There's a lot of proofs for the second opinion. That namely, that the cause, what causes an animal to be permissible to eat, the cause is that it has split hooves and chooses its cud. It's not just a sign. Like we said before, the professor degree makes a person smart, right? That's, who knows, maybe in the movies that's what it is, but there's some opinions that say that what makes the animal kosher is if it's born with split hooves and chews its cud. It's not just a sign. Azoy, also mashma pasuk. It says that it seems that's the language of the simple language of the Torah. It says, "Ki," says the animal is kosher. You may eat it because mala gera umafis parsa. Because it says that it raises up its cud and its hooves are split. As is oicharaya, this is also a proof from the law of a tarnagol agma. There's what's called a chicken from the swamps. It's forbidden. The Tosfos says, as dog gate nit an der klala yotzim yator tor. It says, 1 second, this is not the category, the law of whatever comes from a pure thing is pure. It says this is a special weird animal that grows up from the dirt. Ervax from earth that grows up from the dirt. Is there such an animal like that? I don't know. In the Torah it says that there is. That it grows up from the dirt. So it should be tame because it grows up from earth. It doesn't come from a pure animal. If we say azayzainen nor simanim, if we say that it's just signs that indicate if the thing is kosher or not, as hind vibalt, as men vase from vos faramin their tarnagol kumt is vemen ort dos as hot simani Torah. If we know that the animal has come from a not pure place, right? It didn't come from a pure animal, it came from the ground, right? If this maybe such birds don't exist anymore, but it used to, says, no, we know where it came from, but nevertheless, because this bird has signs of a edible bird, therefore it's kosher. We have to say, as the samanim, that the signs of the animal, they cause the animal to be kosher. One of the signs of a pure bird is it's not a bird of prey. It doesn't eat other birds. So we can say, what makes the bird kosher? Where it comes from or the signs? It says, well, where it comes from, that seems to indicate it's not kosher. But if it has kosher signs, then the signs make it kosher. When they're klala yotzim yator tor is a gezerus because of that, what it says that something that comes from something that's pure, but permissible, is permissible. It's not that it makes it permissible. This is just a law that the Torah sometimes applies. But it's not a general principle. Therefore, if the thing came from the ground, is there nit shayach der kalal? We don't care about this general principle. What comes from only things that are permissible only if they come from a permissible animal. Here it's not relevant. So we see that the signs of the animal cause it to be kosher. We have to understand why. According to this opinion that the signs make it kosher, what's the connection between chewing a cud and having split hooves to being a kosher animal? Why did God decide on these signs? Well, Befrat, I can understand, an animal, a bird of prey, it kills others, so God doesn't want to imbue in us, this feeling that there is a certain degree of influence that what we eat influences us. So God doesn't want that. I can understand. But what's this thing about raising up its cud and chewing and having split hooves? what is that? How does that make us better? What's going on? Well, Befran, especially Penimus Inyan, especially when we're talking about, remember that the Torah is a lesson to us. Everything is a lesson to us. Everything in the Torah is inside of us. We have inside of us an Abraham, an Isaac, a Jacob, a Paro. So we also have a kosher animal, a filu men, vet zagan. If we want to say that the signs are only just signs, that they don't really change anything, they just indicate what there is wie bewusst as als afilu inyanim from belt, like we know that everything, even things in the world, it happens by shkacha pratis because God wants it in order to teach us something. How much more so everything in the Torah, the commandments, everything must be there to teach us something. Is dach from them gufa, from this it, that these signs are signs from purity. This is a proof, as Zezayin Shayach, it must be that somehow or other having split hooves is a good thing. It means being more pure. Chewing your cud is a good thing. Maybe we have to also split our hooves and chew our cud. What does that mean? I'll go upon him at least betoch mesoviv. In any case, at least it's a sign. Nit betoch siba viloitem erster oifen. Right? Chewing your cud and animal chewing its cud, either it can be a sign, in other words, the fact that the animal is pure, that causes it to have split hooves and chews a cud, or we can say the other way around, that having split hooves and it chewing the cud, that causes it to be pure. Is the purity caused by these split hooves, or does the purity is that it's a cause to make these signs? In any case, we see that chewing your cud and splitting hooves is connected to purity. Aina from the Tamim, one of the reasons that foods are forbidden is weil von jedem Meichel, from every food, was men es, what we eat, verdach, there becomes damu basar kabasara. It becomes our flesh and blood. Had the Torah, so the Torah, the Torah forbade us to eat forbidden foods in order to nit a rein gliedert veren in their mensch, so that it should not be have, how do you say, incorporated into a person the Eigenschaft, the nature from that food that's forbidden. Was seinen nit kein gute, which is not good. In other words, good, the negative traits of the food can rub off on us. From this is understood, verstanden, this is understood. Euchen der Minion, from the signs of a permissible and impermissible animal. There is from Essen, welche behemoths, velen, azelcha, behemoths, welche gein nit malagira, the prohibition from eating animals that don't chew their cud and have split hooves is in order that the nature of these animals should not be put in the person, in us. This indicates as the person, Führung, the conduct of a person, that we should incorporate this, not just the food that we eat, but also we should avoid these negative traits that the Torah doesn't want to instill in us by eating these forbidden things. What are the negative traits? Having unsplit hooves and not chewing your cud. So we have to split our hooves and chew our cud. This is some sort of character trait. What does this mean? And the first paragraph we'll do, and then we'll stop. We started a little bit late. Like we said before, in Torah, everything is a teaching, an einweisung, a lesson, to every person, in is thus was the simonim, the fact that the signs of a kosher animal are, or at least they indicate an indication or a cause to Tahoras Abahema, this is teaching us something about what we have to do. We have to chew our cud and split our hooves by a person. Zaina Mavor un Mavchin Zaina Naga. So if so, we have to refine our conduct if we are pure or if it's the opposite. Okay, what could this possibly be? What are we supposed to do in order to chew our cud? And we're going to find this out tomorrow. But I'll just say a little bit. What do they call it? A spoiler. A little bit. Chewing your cud means that you think about things. You swallow it and you bring it back up. So think about things. Splitting hooves means that what's above shines down below and split, right? What's above shines through to below. How that's going to work out, we're going to find out tomorrow. Be with us tomorrow for another lesson. And now we're going to do the Yom Yom. But don't forget that today at 3 o'clock, we're learning about these permissible animals. That's what we're learning, Parsha Shmini. So let's see. Here we go. Yom Yom. Oop. The first Rebbe of Chabad said, among the teachings that my teacher, that was the Maggid of Mezrich. Here we have, I'll give you a 10-second history lesson of Chassidut, the one who originated the whole, how do you say, philosophy, movement of serving God in this deep understanding, but with joy, to love others. That was the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov passed away. Baal Shem Tov used to travel around. He passed away. He had his main pupil. He had a lot of pupils. They say 70 pupils, 60 pupils. Anyways, his main was the Maggid of Mezrich. Maggid of Mezrich, Reb Dovber of Mezrich. And he had also 60 pupils, whatever. In any case, his prize pupil and his youngest pupil was the first Rebbe of Chabad. End of lesson. It was a little bit more than 10 seconds. So it was called the Maggid of Mezrich. And he told me like this: a constant fire should be kept burning on the altar. It should not go out. It should not be put out. The Maggid taught, even though fire comes from above, we have to bring our own fire. Where does it come? On the altar. The altar is our heart. Man's action, we have to begin doing what God wants, and that causes a reaction by God. So to speak, what we do here, when we wake up down here, it awakens God, arouses God. Because God created the world in such a way that our spirit, our love, this elicits, it causes God to react accordingly. And then even higherly, he acts even higher than accordingly. Gives us amazing blessing. Like we just finished learning about Yom HaShmini. Remember, we learned the Sichot that our 7 days, the spirit from below, this elicits the spirit from above, calling even higher. It is a positive commandment that we have to make a fire on the altar. The altar is referring to the man, our heart. A man has to light a fire. He has to devote himself. And this fire, lo tichbeh, puts out all the, first of all, this fire should never go out. But also this fire will put out all the negative things. My master, listen to this. The Alter Rebbe said, a man has to be enthusiastic about God. And when you're enthusiastic, this automatically, doing good, puts out all the bad. Says, my teacher told me this 10 times to engrave it in the 10 powers of my soul. Simple lesson. What do you have? What's the big deal? Says because we're like rocks. We don't understand what's going on. The Alter Rebbe was a tremendous genius, nevertheless, his teacher had to tell him 10 times the simple teaching that a fire constantly has to be burning in your heart for God, and that will get rid of all the bad things. He said to me, you, my pupil, you always have to have this constant fire, because you are going to extinguish the opposition, the opposers of Hasidut. And the first Rebbe of Chabad was actually put into prison because of his ideas, and he was put into prison by religious people. That you are going to extinguish the negativity in the world, and God will transform this negativity to positivity. And that's what's really starting to happen now in a very big way. Those people which were opposed to the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, are suddenly starting to realize that there was nothing to oppose, that he was really just a very, very positive, amazing message bringing to the world, that we need Moshiach now, and Moshiach is coming now. Have a good day with Moshiach now. God willing, 3 o'clock, we'll learn the portion of the week in Chumash with explanations. See you all then. God bless you. Good.
Shalom, Rabbi.